Hey everyone, my name is Corey Rose, and I'm one of the 4 students that will be presenting on GroupM India, the human dimension of digital transformation. Just an overview of what I'll be talking about today. First, we will talk about who and what GroupM India is. Next, we'll look at their digital maturity. After that, we'll discuss the 4 gaps that they experienced, which were through products, profile, people, and partnerships. I'll talk about what I think the key priorities for each of those are and the initiatives to address those priorities. And then last, we'll look at my references. So, what is GroupM India? They were established in 2001, and according to their website, they are a data centric, digitally charged marketing service conglomerate. They're basically a media agency that companies use to help them advertise. They reach brands, they help brands reach their customers. They created specific specialty brands to differentiate between themselves between other networks, and they're made up of 6 agencies. They're the world's largest media agency, $90.8 billion in world billings in 2012. They are 35% larger than their nearest competitor. And 2013 was one of the toughest years for the advertising industry. India economy was slowing down specifically, and traditional advertising balance between television, print, radio, and cinema was being threatened. The new CEO of GroupM, Srinivas, was ready to change the organization to make them future ready. A little background on him: he started at GroupM in 2013, and as I mentioned, that was one of the toughest years for them. Um, he is a media veteran of over 20 years, and prior to GroupM, was part of a startup team, HTA Fulcrum. Now it's called Mindshare, which was India's first standalone agency for Unilever Business. He started at GroupM at a tough time, but was motivated for change. So now we'll get into GroupM's digital maturity. When Group when Srinivas started, GroupM was immature in digital media. Digital accounted for just 6% of media investment in 2012, and there was tremendous room for growth. The Indian customer profile was also evolving at that time. In 2011, India had 120 million internet users. Facebook had 82 million active users in India by 2013. This number would triple by 2015, and this is the second largest geographical region after North America. And then in the case, Srinivas mentioned, we constantly need to be on our toes, look how the industry is evolving, and prepare for the future before we get stuck in it and left. So he presented 2 strategic options. One was to follow the same trajectory as before without rocking the boat. This one he was not a fan of. Second, acknowledge that future could look very different. This is what he went with. So with this information for GroupM to mature in the digital world, something had to change. This change was when they acquired The Glitch, and this acquisition will continue GroupM's growth strategy in India, one of the world's most dynamic emerging economies, and after clients access to a world portfolio of digital marketing services and holistic content solutions. So I got this um, graph off of thebrands.com. I thought it was interesting because it just shows how GroupM in India has evolved. The case showed that in Exhibit 2 in 2012 that TV was still the highest in media spends, was about 3 times the amount of digital. And then this graph represents how they have grown and matured as digital is now in the lead. So some internal challenges for Group M. There were 4 internal challenges for them. They were the product gap, the people gap, the profile gap, and the partnership gap. And for each of these, I'm going to identify the main priorities for addressing the gaps and outline initiatives. So first we have the product gap. The key priorities that I identified for this would be shifting out of traditional media into digital. Srinivas found that 70 to 80% of conversations with clients were about digital media, and then that customers focus on outcomes rather than outputs. So an output tells a story of what you produced or your organization's activities. Outputs measures do not address the value or impact of your services for your clients. On the other hand, an outcome, which is what the customers were looking at, is the level of performance or achievement that occurred because of that activity or service your organization provided. So the industry was measuring outputs, but the customers were measuring outcomes. So my initiatives for this would be to change how Group M measures their product success. They need to shift that focus on how much the customers like what they produce and how successful they are, which is the outcomes, from the outputs, which they're currently measuring. For example, they could be producing 45 TV advertisements, for customers and reach 5,000 people. Group M would think that's successful. Meanwhile, they could produce 2 Facebook advertisements and reach 50,000 people. Group M would look at this as low output because they only produced 2, but the customer would see this as a good outcome because of how many people they reached with those 2 compared to how many they reached with the 45 TV advertisements. Next is the people gap. So the key priorities I identified for this would be to restructure the employees. Srinivas felt that the digital specialists were operating in silos. So they weren't communicating with other groups. Basically, like left hand didn't know what right hand was doing. Also address the retention rate. Young people who have been with the group 1 to 2 years tended to leave, normally for like startup companies. And then make Group M the more appealing place to work. So in general, agencies were keenly pitted against each other. So something needed to be done to make people want to work at Group N. So my initiatives for this would be deconstruction of the silos. So merge teams together for better collaboration, create a new reward system, and redesign the office, literally and figuratively break down the walls. So make a work environment where they can communicate, they can cross train, they work with other departments, and then also when I say literally break down the walls, make common work areas. So my company that I work with now does that, and it just lets people work together better and better understand what the other person's doing. Last, create a company where people want to work. So offer perks such as flexible work time and free training. People that are leaving mostly for startup companies. So they're not going to have that free training or sometimes that flexible work schedule. So this is something Group M could offer. And then also create a culture that is easy to come to work to and that people enjoy coming to work to. Next is the profile gap. So the key priorities I identified for this would be to reorientate Group M to specialize in new economy categories. These categories would be customer internet and technology clients. Also stay ahead of the clients and consumers. So understand what the customer wants before they even know. Like understand what they could use best for their company. And then help customers understand what would be best for them. So they may think one product is good for them, but in reality, there's something better that might even cost them less. My initiative for this would be to create a new department within Group M. So this department specializes in digital media, and it's also keeping up with current trends and wants of the market. So they're always on top, and they're always the the organization that customers are going to go to because they're up on all the trends. And then understand what would be best for the customer based off what they need and how much they can spend. So a customer thinks they might need like a TV advertisement, but in reality, they could reach more people through the digital marketing. And that's something Group M then can then present to them. Next is the partnership gap. So for this, my key priority would be to find organizations to partner with. Group M mentioned that they were not confident with what they have to make recommendations to customers. So my initiative for this would be to collaborate with these companies to best help the customer and offer them everything they need. So if Group M does not have something a customer wants or they're not confident in it, they can then use that other company and help them get the customer everything they need. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for the customer then. Lastly, here is my list of references. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about what you just heard. Otherwise, I hope you were able to learn something from this, and then I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.